when they're trying to bring Kevin Bacon back to visibility and he starts like thrashing around the gurney, immediately they throw the blanket off of him. It's like, shit, he's dying. Let's get one last look at his cock. You're listening to Diminishing Returns, a podcast about sequels, prequels, spin-offs and reboots. I'm Chris Scott, and across from me, he's a man I wish I couldn't see right now. It's Mr. Alan Johnson.
How do, pod people?
The question is, what would you do if you knew you couldn't be seen?
Imagine the freedom to fulfill any desire. Now, imagine that power in the wrong hands.
H.G. Wells' 1897 novel The Invisible Man has proved a fertile source for countless adaptations, radio dramas, comics, plays, cartoons, TV shows, and of course movies. The highly influential science fiction novel has been worked into crime capers, thrillers, comedies, and of course horror movies, with the titular character portrayed by an array of talent from Vincent Price to Chevy Chase. His most memorable turn possibly came with his initial big screen outing in James Whale's 1933 classic The Invisible Man, starring Claude Rains. Since then, we've had various takes on just how an invisible being may behave when their actions remain unseen. Most recently, Leigh Whannell refocused this story as a sort of post-Me Too allegory in The Invisible Man from 2020, where star Elisabeth Moss gives a powerful performance as a woman escaping a suffocating and controlling relationship where she's abused by her partner, who is developing a technology which can render the wearer invisible. This, however, is not the first time that we have seen an overtly unnerving and abusive unseen force as the Invisible Man. Paul Verhoeven, in his final Hollywood movie to date, tapped into this for Hollow Man from 2000, where Kevin Bacon's driven and arrogant scientist becomes ever more reckless in his experiments to control visibility, leading him on a destructive path and becoming a transparent terror.
It's amazing what you can do when you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror anymore.
Yeah, so Hollow Man, obviously a modern spin on the famous Queen song, I'm the Invisible Man. Paul Verhoeven, the director of this film, you know, Robocop, Starship Troopers, Total Recall.
Basic Instinct.
Again, another former alum of this show, Basic Instinct.
Showgirls.
I've never seen Showgirls, actually. Paul Verhoeven, I mean, he's made 3 of my favourite films of all time. Just a guy that just goes for it. So when was this? 1999?
Filmed in 99, released in 2000.
This is like a little window into how films used to be. Before every big blockbuster film was a superhero film, right? Or a franchise film. It was just like, we're going to give this nutter of a director like $100 million and it's just going to be $100 million film about a sex pest.
Yeah.
And we all lapped up. You know why? Because it's actually quite good. This film is enjoyable. But there's moments where you're like, this was almost great. Like, this was almost just like 10 out of 10 absolute nonsense. But I really enjoyed bits of this, 20 years later.
You're totally right. It's got elements to it which really do jar with the modern film viewer.
Yeah. So in this film, because it's late 90s, early 2000s, instead of it being like a potion, it's DNA, nuclear science. That turns him invisible, and then the hymn that we talk about, the titular Hollow Man, and also titular's the right word because there's also quite a lot of tits in this film. The titular Hollow Man is played by, of course, Kevin Bacon, a man who already looks like you can see his skeleton before they do the effects that show his skin becoming invisible and then you can see his skeleton. He's a sort of arrogant, crazy, mad scientist.
A real hot dog.
This film really portrays scientists, I think, in a very real-world way, They're all just like sports car driving shaggers, which I think we can all agree is that's what scientists are.
That's one of the tropes that I wanted to speak about. This illusion that if you're a scientist, it looks like a job that pays well, that you get to live a flamboyant lifestyle. They all seem to have really big like apartments in Washington DC. He's driving that convertible, he's got his leather jacket.
They go out to like this exclusive restaurant,
Yeah, overlooking the Capitol building. It seems like there's money in science, but we all know it's a total fallacy. I was thinking it's just like a holdover from olden times when obviously to become a professor or a doctor or hold like a scientific post, you would have to have some kind of education. And obviously there was a period in recent history when education was really only available to those that could afford it. So if you had one of those roles in society, it meant that you sort of came from a wealthy background because you could pay for your education. But of course, when you see that in movies, oh, there's a mad scientist and he's got loads of money.
Yeah, I want to drive a Porsche and sing along badly to Skunk and Nancy, which is a real scene from this film. It's a beautiful thing. So Kevin Bacon is like the mad, arrogant scientist. And what I like about this film is like if you read the logline of all of that, it's like Doctor finds a way to make himself invisible, but when he can't bring himself back, it turns him crazy and it leads him into all sorts of bad behaviour. That is not the film that happens here. Within about 5 minutes, they're like, let's be clear, Kevin Bacon's a creepy dickhead and he's already a prick, and I am all for it. The main character in this film, within the first 2 minutes, perving on his hot neighbour and hoping she doesn't close the blinds properly. Here's another thing, right? Again, this is a realistic film. Scientists are just Porsche driving Skunk and Nancy fans. They are funded by the military. There probably is a bit more money in that, but we'll move aside there.
Defund scientists.
Right? Defund crazy experimental Invisible Man scientists. When I was a young man, something that movies assured me that would happen all the time has never happened in my 40 years on this planet, which is a hot woman or a hot guy getting changed, taking their top off without any thought of closing their blinds until at least halfway through.
The blinds are an afterthought.
Yeah, I live in a flat. First thing I do before I even scratch my belly, is make sure that every single window is shut, the blinds are all closed, and there's not a bit of light coming through because I don't want some poor neighbour seeing this. But in films, every single fucking day, a character looks across the way at another flat. There's some absolute smoke show, getting their baps out. It's like this has never happened in the history of life, which is disappointing. So, within 5 minutes, Kevin Bacon's character is creeping on his neighbour, phones up his colleagues, telling them how brilliant he is, and within 10 minutes, he's threatened to kill, a gorilla.
Yeah.
Paul Verhoeven's like, I'm going to make this guy really unlikable, and you're going to watch it because it's going to be kind of entertaining.
It is odd. I don't get the impression that at any point they're trying to make you like Kevin Bacon. But here we see him, and he is this totally self-obsessed scientist. Like you say, it doesn't matter what stands in his way, whether it's a protein chain or a lab animal.
I think for context we should say, he did threaten to kill the gorilla as part of a vivisection in the lab. He wasn't just going round the zoo with a shotgun being like, I'm bored, I couldn't jerk off to my neighbour, she closed the blinds halfway through, fuck it, I'm just going to go shoot an animal. It was part of his duties as a scientist.
Yeah, it's these initial scientific experiments that we see they have turned animals invisible, but the problem they're trying to solve within the film is we can get them to turn invisible, it's the getting them back from invisibility that we can't do. So they have an invisible gorilla, and we first see them, quote unquote, on screen when they just munch down on a rat that's been fed to them, and you just see the bloody maw of the gorilla as it just munches down on the rat. Which
is fucking cool. This is where Paul Verhoeven knows what he's doing. He's just if there's loads of characters that are invisible, like a gorilla, a dog, a fucking human, we're gonna be able to see them through heat visors, right? You see their heat signatures.
Predator vision.
Yeah, and the other way we're going to see it is we're going to have loads of things either splash on them, steam, or blood splashing, water splashing.
Fire extinguishers.
Yeah, 100% great work. Just get them on the whiteboard, tick them off. Fucking fantastic. Kevin Bacon's I just need to get things visible again. I've done the job halfway. He's half-assed this job, right, so far.
Yep.
I can get things invisible, I just can't get things visible. But he's getting close. He thinks he's cracked it. He phones up his ex-girlfriend who he works with in the lab. It's Elisabeth Shue, everybody.
Great.
Everybody loves Elisabeth Shue, right? Another former alum of Diminishing Returns.
Bruce Willis's wife in Death Wish, yes indeed.
Obviously Kevin Bacon, former alum from Footloose.
Yes.
And Paul Verhoeven, obviously from Basic Instinct.
And RoboCop.
How could I forget? It's because we also covered the remake. So these are all people we know well that have travelled through our storied halls here. So Elisabeth Shue's his ex-girlfriend. He phones her up at in the middle of the night. I think I've got it. I'm amazing. I'm just like Da Vinci. I never sleep. Is that a thing? I don't think that is that. I mean, if he said that, if Da Vinci says that, right? He's a liar. You need sleep. I'm like, listen, Da Vinci, you know your stuff. You're pretty good. But don't come at me with this no sleep bullshit. Da Vinci, you're a lying sack of shit. That's what I'm just saying. Alright? Bacon's like, I don't sleep, baby. I was up all night trying to jerk off to my neighbour. Now I've fixed this. And he's like, oh, you got a lover there? Because they've got some pretty good video call technology, actually, for the year 2000.
Yeah.
You know, the early adopters.
Very, very forward-looking, this.
But the person's under the covers, and she's like, don't you worry about him. I'll be in the lab in a minute. They cut off a video call, and Elisabeth Shue, her partner under the covers, comes up, and it's fucking Thanos.
That's right.
Josh Brolin. He's like, I'm also a guy who works at the lab, and he doesn't know we're sleeping together.
No.
Oh, straight away, this is great.
We've got a love triangle.
We've got a love quadrangle. We've got Elisabeth Shue, we've got Josh Brolin, we've got Kevin Bacon, and the hot neighbour. It's a love square, right? It's an unrequited love square, of which Kevin Bacon is definitely creeping on two of those corners. Maybe. I mean, Josh Brolin's quite a good looking guy. So
he's maybe just running the table.
Who knows? So now we've got the love triangle, stroke square. A stroke square is absolutely exactly what it is. And we've already seen like an invisible gorilla. It's like, right, you know, sometimes you watch a film and it's like an hour of setup.
Yeah.
You're like 6 minutes in this film. Okay, he works in an underground lab. Let's just get to what you want to see, which is cool invisible shit happening.
I mean, it's not called Hollow Gorilla, it's called Hollow Man.
Yeah.
So very, very quickly, we explain everything, and then like Kevin Bacon, so arrogant, I've turned a gorilla invisible, I've almost brought a gorilla back. We need to move on to the next stage because the funding is dependent on the next stage.
Yeah, this sort of character in a film who's arrogant, god complex, which is brilliant. It's a very subtle way that they show you he's got a god complex. One of the lab techs who like sits above and looks over everything, they call it heaven, and he sort of jokingly calls himself God, and Kevin Bacon's character goes, no, I am God. Subtle character work there, guys. But again, I'm okay with that in this sort of film. I don't want a 20-minute fucking prologue about how, you know, like as a child he was beaten or some shit. It's just like, hey, I'm a fucked up weirdo. I'm going to get invisible. Shit's going to go down. And you're like, yeah, do it. He's the sort of person that's going to, you know, go through rigorous testing and go through all the rules and regulations, right? Ha! Man, of course, he's immediately lying to fucking, like, Congress or some shit, man. It's like the military industrial complex, you know, who have a bunch of guys who are obviously, like, you know, generals and shit. And William Devane is the old general guy who, if you, like me, have been in lockdown and watching telly during the day, is selling coins on British TV.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant because he literally popped up on my telly selling coins, and I went, oh, that's that guy. What's his name again? And he goes, hi, I'm William Devane. And I've been an actor for 40 years, and it's like, he also evidently needs to pay his tax bill because he's shilling for this company. But if you don't know who William Devane is, look him up, and you'll be like, oh, that guy who's been in a million things. So he's like the big kind of guy who deals with the Invisible Man program.
Yeah, how can we weaponise not being seen?
Yeah, and he's like, you're a brilliant man, but I'm going to cut your funding. Kevin Bacon's like, oh, don't worry. And he leaves, and he's like, I'm going to make myself invisible. And all the other characters go, cool, that's the point of this film. Let's get this done. So they get back to the lab, right? The lab's great. Again, just like quality Hollywood, and I'm going to use this word in inverted commas, characters. Just thinly drawn. And this sounds like a criticism. In other films it would be, but in this film, it's about just getting the job done, you know? So you've got Kim Dickens, who I love. She was in Deadwood. She plays like the best vet in the world, and then spends the rest of the film being a doctor. Like, I'm no vet and or doctor. If you're getting enough money to have an underground lab, you can hire the best vet in the world. Maybe have one other doctor. Don't just be like, well, we've got a vet, that'll do. I mean, even if you need to keep it off the books, you know, give a doctor a homer. Yep. Just a wee cash in hand, mate. Gonna make myself invisible. 500 quid. You know, what the tax man doesn't know won't hurt you. Just fucking come to the underground lab. But anyway, so she's the caring vet who doesn't want him to kill gorillas.
Yeah.
You've got Greg Goonberg.
J.J. Abrams' favourite.
And, of course, the person that goes around boats telling us to save the environment. No, that's Thunberg, right? Easy mistake to make. And he's like the kind of jock, orderly.
He wears a Walkman around the lab, so he's the cool, easy breezy.
Is he not like reading like Playboys and stuff as well?
Oh, yeah.
He's like a bro.
He can only aspire to perving on his neighbours to whack off to them. He has to just go the old school.
Maybe it's just when you get to upscale neighbourhoods. That's like when I walk around Partick in the West End of Glasgow, because things are going quite well for me. But I go walk around, there's the posh bits. They all have like private gardens for all the flats, a kind of communal private garden, and that's part of their rent. You get these wee extras, and maybe that's what it is. Like if you go to like a really nice apartment complex, it's like you've got the communal garden area. Bins go out there, and there's a hot neighbour that gets undressed every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Leaves their blinds open so you get to see like a little bit of side boob, but that's it. Them's the rules. So you've got him. There's a nerd guy on a computer. It's a film from 99, 2000. There is no doubt in your mind as soon as it starts that he's hacking into something later on, and he does. And then there's a character that I can only assume, and it's not me saying this, but in Hollywood would be the black assistant, which is basically what she is. And does she get killed first? Does she get killed first? Yes, she does.
Of course.
Well done, Hollywood.
The sort of tokenism of having a black character in the sort of main cast. And of course, when shit hits the fan, they're the first one killed. And I really would have thought better of someone like Veroeven.
The one thing I will say is he does give her a good few cool scenes. One of which is where we think Kevin Bacon is perving on her while she takes a shit. It's this sort of film, guys. It's this sort of film. This isn't your mama's Invisible Man film. This is Kevin Bacon wants to see a lady drop a deuce, okay? And that's how he gets his kicks, a wee kink shame.
Do you think this has been like the sort of backbone of his work through university, post-grad, possibly PhD? His thesis topic was like, can invisible men see all the boobs they want? And in fact, it reminds me, have you ever heard the This American Life podcast with John Hodgman when he interviews people about superpowers and he asks them, would you like the power of flight or would you like the power of invisibility?
Right.
What happens is immediately people just start working out how to game this for themselves.
Yeah.
Nobody says, I'd like to fly and I'll go and rescue people from places.
Help people. Yeah.
Immediately people are like, if I go invisible, can I just like go into the bank and steal stuff?
Can steal money, yeah.
It nicely encapsulates what happens in this movie, which is once you can operate with impunity, if you can't be seen doing something bad, can anyone really prove it was you doing that bad thing?
This is this really cynical film about one really shitty person and a bunch of people who enable him because they get paid. I can't imagine they would make a film like this now. It's just so grubby, and I love it. I love the grubbiness of it.
That's what makes the most recent Invisible Man with Elisabeth Moss so interesting, is that they have almost taken Hollow Man and like gone at it from the other angle.
Yeah.
And then it is about that like abusive power dynamic and someone genuinely being terrorized by this unseen threat, which could be, like psychological or physical abuse. And that film, I've made it sound like it's no fun at all, but that Elisabeth Moss movie, it is brilliant.
Yeah, it's great though.
Great movie.
It's weird because obviously when we were talking about, we were like, well, we'll do Hollow Man because that's kind of out there, crazy town version of the Invisible Man, whereas the new Elisabeth Moss film, while we both really enjoyed it, is there anything fun about this woman being completely horrifically abused and gaslighted?
No jokes.
No. It's a good film, but we can't make jokes about it.
No.
But Hollow Man, as you say, in a lot of places, isn't that much. There's definitely the same sort of theme of this guy is not the hero of this story.
No.
Although they kind of make Elizabeth Shue the hero in places, unfortunately, they just don't have the kind of balls to centre it on her, which is really what the Elisabeth Moss film is. That latest Invisible Man film, the smart move in that, which is so obvious in retrospect. Why are we making this film all about the person who we literally can't see? Why don't we make it about one of his victims? And then you immediately go, that's the best way to make that film.
Yeah.
Everyone else is kind of an idiot. The second best way to make that film is in 1999 with $100 million, and where you get to see Kevin Bacon's skeleton dick. Okay? Let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about the effects, which, by the way, I think are still pretty fucking good.
Oscar nominated.
Yeah, lost out to Gladiator, which is fair.
That brought Oliver Reed back from the dead. I mean, come on.
But did you get to see Oliver Reed's skeleton dick? Because what they do is, when he becomes invisible, like it happens in stages, which is a really cool effect, and you see the skin disappear and become invisible, so then you see like his organs and his muscle and his vein, and you get to see Kevin's little cut of bacon, you know? It's brilliant, right? You know, we're obviously men of a certain age, right? And I think a lot of today's cinema goers, they grew up where it was always possible to see a skeleton Kevin Bacon's dick. But when we were kids, you know, we couldn't even dream that one day we'd get the chance to see a skeleton Kevin Bacon's dick. It wasn't available. We got to see technology come to the point where all our dreams about Kevin Bacon's skeleton dick have been realised. You know, it does point, you know, Citizen Kane, Wizard of Oz, you know, great films that brought the medium forward. As you move on, you know, you get masters of the art like Spielberg, Scorsese, Coppola, the great filmmakers of our times. But Paul Verhoeven was the man that gave us Kevin Bacon's skeleton dick, and that is why he's so beloved. He's a great man. It's such a cool, I was going to say it's a cool wee effect, it sounds like I'm slagging off his dick. No, it's a fine dick, you know. I mean, it's a prime cut of bacon in this film, and it's a really cool effect, actually. I think it looks great as it peels away his layers.
That's the thing I was most surprised at, is that for a 20-year-old film, especially that turn of the century, which sounds weird to say, but the turn of the century digital effects, you know, they don't always hold up now.
No.
And the effects in that movie are really pretty great, and, you know, just to see some of Kevin's bacon just sweetens the deal.
That's it, some sweet bacon. Really cool effects. This is, I think, one of the sort of early examples of using computers to motion track the cameras, so that you can have shots where you basically do a shot, you know, with a stand-in, and then do the exact same camera movement without them, and then you can match them in post, which, you know, takes digital automation to make the camera move the same. One of the other great effects is he realises he can't come back. You know, he thinks he can make himself visible again. It doesn't work. And this is where he starts, you know, go crazy. But they pour a kind of latex over him so that he can at least be seen in the lab. And they cut wee eye holes in a mouth hole, and that's great as well, because there's no eyes.
Yeah.
It's all see-through. It looks creepy and weird, and it's great. So the effects in this still hold up.
Yeah, quite early on, they were employing techniques like speakers to broadcast Kevin Bacon's voice when he was meant to be invisible, just so people could react to the correct place. But also they thought that they might not need Kevin Bacon on set, but very quickly realised that we had to be there, so he was in either blue or green or grey suits, depending on colour matching.
The background.
So he's in shots with the actors, but then he's digitally erased. But it does mean that you don't have that thing where people have got multiple eye lines or whatever. But you're talking about Verhoeven and sort of classic filmmaking techniques. Did you like his use of foreshadowing about the behaviour shift in The Invisible Man when Kevin Bacon tells the joke about Superman?
Aye.
Did you ever hear the one about Superman and Wonder Woman?
I'm planning around.
No, come on, this is a good one. Superman is flying over Metropolis, right? He's horny as hell, and he's checking out the rooftops, and all of a sudden he sees Wonder Woman sunning herself on the roof of the Justice League, okay? I mean, she's lying there, buck naked, spread eagle, looking like she wants to be fucked, right? So Superman, he said to himself, oh my God, I gotta get myself some of that Wonder Pussy. But then he realizes that he could fly down, do a little fast pumping, and be gone before she even knows it, because he's Superman, right? He's faster than a speeding bullet, right? So Superman, he swoops down, he fucks her so quick she doesn't even see him. Wonder Woman sits up, says, what the fuck was that? And the Invisible Man says, I don't know, but my asshole is killing me. That's funny, right? Come on, guys, that's funny.
Which immediately, like, that joke is a joke about sexual assault.
Well, also, this is not a realistic film. This is not cinema verite, right? But what I would say is that is a wonderful realistic portrayal of you hearing your boss tell a fucking terrible joke, and you have to just go, oh, all right, okay. Like, I'm not laughing at this, and the boss is like, we've all had that scene. Haunting. So basically, he gets made invisible. Immediately, he gets a swatch at Kim Dickens' boob, takes her boob out while she's sleeping. Like, day one, Kevin. This has not been a slow slide into just creepery. Straight away, boob. And then also listening in on a team meeting when they're all talking about him, like George Costanza in Seinfeld. You know?
Like right out the traps, he becomes invisible and immediately attacks Kim Dickens. but there's been no like preamble to it. There's been no lead up to it. There's tension between them because she doesn't want to see the animals in their care harmed, and he obviously is just like, whatever, they're animals. So what is he then, just attacking her because it's like a revenge for her saying no to him?
No, I think it's just because she's there, because he's a dick.
She's just there.
It's not like out of even personal animus. It's like Kevin Bacon's a creepy fucking dude in the film.
Let's be clear.
He's probably lovely in real life, but in the film, his character is just like, oh man, I can't see boobs from my hot neighbour, raging. He's always like going up and trying to kiss his ex-girlfriend, and then immediately he's like, I'm invisible now. Oh, there's a lassie there, and she's asleep. Bang, absolute savage, right? He realises he can't come back to visibility as easy as they thought. It's not happening. Shit, how long are we going to be stuck invisible? He gets the latex mask and stuff so he can walk about. He immediately is like, right, I'm going back to my flat. This film literally brings home the bacon. And thank you. And he's like, he gets in the flat, looks across at the hot neighbour's flat, and is like, I know what I'll do. I'll just go in there and be a piece of shit human being.
Yeah, he's come home because he wants to work at home to work out the problem so he can return to visibility. But yeah, like you say, catches one look at Rona Mitra across the way, and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go and sexually assault this person.
Yeah, he kind of goes, what's stopping me? It's like, I have no conscience, and like, complete piece of shit. Again, terrible human being character choice. Film choice is just like, yeah, this film is not wanting you to think that he's the hero. There was a quote from Paul Verhoeven going, I just wanted to see how far we could take it where people would still follow this character as he does increasingly awful things, and at which point would they stop rooting for him. But some audiences seem to still think he was okay. And it's like, what? Jesus Christ, that's horrendous. But, Verhoeven knows what he's doing. It's like, yeah, this guy is now going to do something horrendous. So we get a quick cameo from Rona Mitra of Doomsday fame. I think we've talked about this. One of my favourite films of the 2000s. An incredibly cheap B-movie where she plays a lady with a cyborg eye. It's great. You really can't go wrong. We now know this character isn't just like playing stupid pranks. He's a piece of shit. It's not been hidden well, but that's it. And then he comes back to the lab and everybody's like, I don't know what we're going to do. Fucking rubbish. He keeps kind of just leaving and he's invisible. I don't know, guys. Wear those heat-sensitive visor things that you can use to see invisible people. Because despite the fact that they have something that can tell you exactly where the Invisible Man is, throughout this whole film, they keep taking them off and putting them in wee boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got the solution to this.
We established in scene 1 that we have goggles and tranquilizer darts. Everybody just have those at all times.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, they keep like putting them on and then taking them off again. I'm like, don't take them off. Just keep them on. And then you'll be able to see the Invisible Man. His only superpower is invisibility. If you put these specs on, he's no longer invisible, guys. And they're like, I've looked for 2 seconds. I'm just going to put these away now. And you're like, you fucking idiots. But of course, inevitably, he's going more crazy, and he was already a dick. Elisabeth Shue, Josh Brolin are like, we fucked this. We need to come clean to the military. They tell William Devane. He tries to sell him some coins. And they're like, we're just going to tell him we fucked it. He went invisible, kind of getting back again. What'd you think? Right, okay, we're in trouble. And then I think they then go home and have sex. Fair. If I look like Josh Brolin or Elisabeth Shue.
Yeah, they're just relieved that they've broken the bad news to Devane.
Yeah, each one of them's like, you're really hot, let's go bang again.
Yep. Doesn't Elisabeth Shue say, wait, I was going to start without you?
Aye, that's right. Josh Brolin comes into the flat and she's like, I was going to start without you or whatever. And then the window smashes. And then when they turn round, there's nobody there. And Elisabeth Shue, to her credit, is like, I'm phoning the lab because that was obviously him. Is he still in the lab? Whereas Josh Brolin, who is also a scientist, is like looking around the window going, I wonder what the hell this could have been. Oh boy. Obviously I'm sleeping with her ex-boyfriend who's a megalomaniac invisible man, but it wouldn't be that. That would be some sort of crazy talk. No, I just think this window's shattered all by itself. I don't know how he got a job in a lab. He's obviously not that bright. Maybe he just really likes Skunk and Nancy.
But there's that weird jockeying for position between Bacon and Brolin. They both seem to want to be like the alpha. They're always gambling with each other, like, I bet you $10 I can do this before you. They're very competitive with one another, and obviously the fact that Brolin is now in a relationship with Elisabeth Shue is just a twist of the knife for Bacon. It's just something that's pushing him over over the edge more.
Yeah, it's really cut Bacon. So Bacon has seen that Brolin's pumping his ex-bard. They've grassed him up to filming TV's William Devane, and he's like, so this is all crumbling around him. So he does the only sensible thing. He drowns William Devane in his own pool, in his house.
Yep.
And when this gets back to the people in the lab, I don't think Josh Brolin still realises. He's like, this guy's drowned. God.
Kim Dickens is telling me that someone sexually assaulted her while she was asleep. That window just exploded, but the only linking factor is there was literally no one around when those things happened.
Well, it's a real pickle. So, boy, oh boy. And like Elisabeth Shue's like, guys, we need to fucking sort this out.
It's at this point when the film switches gears. It's been a sort of like science fiction thriller up until this point, and then now it becomes a sort of slasher movie. You've got the bad guy. He's just now going to go around and kill everyone off one by one. Devane's been drowned the pool, so the military are out of the way. Now he's just going to start like doing away with everybody in that lab team. And
then no one will know. He can go about freely, touching boobs.
Yeah.
It's done really well. There's some like really cool kills. Again, somebody using a fire extinguisher to try and figure out his form. It takes them about an hour to figure out they should use the specs.
Yeah.
By which point, he's figured out a way to kind of fuck that over, which makes me laugh.
He kills a dog. I mean, that must have been right up your street.
Oh, hilarious. But it's invisible, so you only see it in the thermal heat sink. But it looks cool as fuck. It's fucking great. And yes, they do this sort of slasher thing, and it's great because obviously Kevin Bacon's really good at being a prick. Mm-hmm. Like, he's great in this. He's just like, I'm acting like a dick, and I get to just be a creepy bastard, and it works really well. They do that thing where they kind of knock him down, leave him for dead, and then be like, well, we've hit him once, let's walk away.
Yeah.
Guys, he's invisible. Again, his only superpower is invisibility. That won't save him if you slit his fucking throat. Like, you've got him on the ground, just rip his fucking throat off, and then he's dead, and that's it. But they go, we'll leave that.
It would just be weird though to slit his throat and all that invisible blood comes gushing out.
Yeah, like they keep slipping and falling on blood they can't see.
In the 1933 Invisible Man, you only really see completely visible Claude Rains when he dies at the end. As he dies, the invisibility wears off.
Right, okay. So he's killed off everybody apart from basically Josh Brolin and Elisabeth Shue. Also, he fucking rips a big fucking hole in Josh Brolin's midriff, and it looks like he's about to die. And Elisabeth Shue gaffer tapes it up, leaves him for fucking 10 minutes, and he pops back up looking like he's just been at a spa weekend. Like, he's so rested and relaxed, and you're like, mate, you were fucking dying. Like,
He just needed 40 winks. That's all he needed.
Listen, a wee disco nut, we've all been there.
They'd been locked in the freezer, that was the thing. Like, Bacon thought, I've killed everybody, I'm blowing the lab sky high, I've locked Elisabeth Shue and Brolin in the freezer, I'm out of here. Did you like the escape plan that Elisabeth Shue hatched?
She sort of makes a kind of magnetised thing, and because it's 20 years ago, it's like, we're going to give this chick some cool stuff to do, even though she's pretty. And we're not going to let her be the real hero, but we'll give her some moments. There is a sort of disappointing bit when Brolin comes back and sort of smashes, Bacon over the head, which was obviously like, we have to give him a win because he's the man, so we have to have a bit where he hits Bacon.
I do really agree with you that it becomes a kind of slasher film, so you expect the final girl, if we're using conventional tropes from these genres, you expect Elisabeth Shue to be the final girl and she be the one that does in the big bad. But I actually don't like that moment when you think, the worst is going to happen, and it's Josh Brolin pops up out of nowhere.
It kind of saves the day. Yeah. Admittedly, Elisabeth Shue does later on finally finish him off, but it just feels like, okay, we had to give him a win, did we? It's a bit boring.
But I wonder if it was one of those things, obviously this was test screened, various bits have been cut and obviously changes made because of screenings. I wonder actually if Josh Brolin effectively was just killed off and people were like, it feels a bit crappy that he got killed. I wonder, it feels a bit kind of tacked on that Brolin's still alive.
But that was a nice bit of escape.
And that battle, the continued battle with Elisabeth Shue and Kevin Bacon, and then she gets a flamethrower and she sets him on fire, and even though he is invisible, it feels agonising. It's amazing. Like,
it's really cooked bacon. And I did quite like that it was like, right, cool, as it should be, it's Elisabeth Shue against her ex-man.
Yeah.
And it's a nice bit of business, which is kind of ruined by they basically are escaping up a lift shaft. Her and Brolin, they eventually kind of knock him to the ground, as I say, for the second time. And are like, okay, we need to get out of here. And they realise that Kevin Bacon's basically set up some chemicals to explode the whole lab so that there's no evidence. And the only way they can get out is by climbing up this lift shaft. So they climb up and, oh, what's that on my leg?
An invisible hand. Like the Genesis album, The Invisible Touch.
Ah, whoa. And it's like, well, you've had two goes at killing this motherfucker and you haven't bothered your arse finishing the job, so he's back again. And like, they're fighting on top of a lift. She kind of has a mechanism to let the lift drop.
She kicks this like brake that seems to be holding the cable on the top of the lift.
And this is all happening while the lab is on fire.
Yeah.
And the lift falls with a great Hollywood bad guy falling into a ball of fire shot, which I thought was great. Really enjoyed it. Obviously, that's bacon done for. It's fried bacon. And finally, after 2 or 3 attempts between her and Brolin, she does actually get to finish him off finally.
With a sign-off line, go to hell.
Beautiful, right?
Boom, into fire.
Bang. And then they kind of walk out of the secret lab. And there's the door guard guy who's been kind of kicking about, but who's obviously just like, what the fuck's been happening, guys? I just clocked on for my 8 o'clock and suddenly fucking everything's went to shit.
I don't have a voice password for that lift. I can't get down.
Yeah, I could hear a lot of noises there, but I was like, it's not my business, you know. So listen, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was good fun. It was better than I thought it would be, even though I remember enjoying it at the time. I thought, it's probably not going to hold up with the effects and stuff. Yeah, I really liked it. What about you?
It's a strange one. I certainly was expecting far worse from it, because the sort of elements I remember from it are that there's a lot of invisible Kevin Bacon, and also I just remember that thing of as soon as he goes invisible, he just becomes a sexual predator, and I thought, how is that going to feel these days? And it felt icky, it felt weird, but the other stuff going on around the film, it was enough to kind of like give it a bit of buoyancy, because it's kind of daft. Everything that's going on is kind of daft. It's sort of like just daft enough to offset the sort of mean-spiritedness of this other part of it. But like you say, that's all feeding into Kevin Bacon is an unsavoury dude. He's not a likeable guy.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they made a $100 million film where the lead character is not the hero.
Yeah.
That's quality, and it's the sort of thing that Paul Verhoeven could probably, only get away with at that time, at that scale. And he did say himself, he goes, that film, he felt like anyone else could have made that film.
Yeah, it could have been made by any one of 20 directors. He was like, RoboCop, Total Recall, only I could do those. But
yeah, and so it's not on a par with those, frankly, masterpieces in my opinion. But there's still enough of his sort of skill and madness in it that it's a good watch. To the surprise, I think, of all of us, I really quite enjoyed it again.
Did you enjoy it enough that you would maybe try and track down Hollow Man 2 with Christian Slater?
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. If the producers hired Christian Slater, that makes me think that they wouldn't want to back Bacon. See, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of pressure on here, I believe that's the Oliver Reed story from Women in Love. Every time they said cut, he'd go and give himself a little bit of manual, make sure that he was, always at his best, because it's a variable thing, guys,